Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Struggle is Not Real. I am Mike Indolfo, and this is the show that challenges basically productivity myths that hold entrepreneurs back. And then we hopefully replace them with some good things that you can consider. And today's show is going to be about the early bird does not always get the worm. And for this conversation, I am joined by New York Times bestselling author Michael Lennington and the queen of coaching, Kristen Tabbert. Is it still frozen up in northern Michigan?
85 today.
85. Wow.
Yep.
But you guys aren't getting the thunderstorms that we're getting down here.
We got that last night, and in talking with Josh today, he said that it was raining there. And I looked at the weather, and it looks like whatever you guys are getting is going to make its way up to us tomorrow.
Okay.
So.
Well, it's supposed to get a little hairy tonight, and we've got Rocco's graduation tonight, so it's hard to believe I will no longer be taking a kid to school or making a school lunch, which is, this is all this productivity talk comes at a really good time because I'm basically going to get like an hour and a half, 2 hours back in my day. And I'm really looking forward to getting into some routines. So
yeah, but being that person, you never get that back. And so it's also
that's true. No, there's really I'm definitely going to miss it. Like as you all know, having conversations, especially with my son, having conversations with my daughter is amazing too. I'll have to tell you all a story that you guys are going to find hilarious about her too. Because again, you both know my kids, but the having conversations with Rocco, especially if he's in the mood to have a deep conversation on the way to school, can be pretty fascinating. So
yeah, pretty sharp kid. I don't know where he got it from. Obviously, we know.
Chrissy.
I know. That's what I trying to say that without saying it. Yeah.
Well, and then last night, I think you all know that Nia has a peanut allergy. So whereas Nia is probably the most social and can basically start a conversation with anyone. And I love telling the story about I was at the John Acuff live event, and I was talking to John Acuff and telling him that him and I met in November, and he didn't really remember meeting me. And I said, my daughter was the tall girl with the curly hair. And he's like, oh, she's a killer. And like he remembered exactly who she was. And he talked about killers or people that they would always take a bet on. And of course, so last night she ended up ingesting a peanut around 11 o'clock at night, and we had to go to the ER, and we were in the ER until about 4 a.m. And of course, she ended up getting a referral out from the nurse. Only my daughter can do that.
Dealing with anaphylactic shock, and she walks away with a.
This was after she got the EpiPen shot in her leg, so she was feeling pretty good, but she left there with a referral. So
she doesn't carry an EpiPen with her.
Oh, she does. Yeah, she does. But she's really I think she has really bad memories about when we had to do it when she was a 7th grader. So the last time we had to do it was when she was a 7th grader, and so it's been 7-8 years since we've had to do this. Yeah. Ironically, both of them were in May. But yeah, it's she kind of doesn't like putting the needles in. She had this. And again, it's so fascinating how we believe certain things in our head, right? She had this memory in her head of this needle being so much more painful than it actually is, right? Mm-hmm. Which we all do. We all go to get shots or whatever else, and really they're so good at giving shots anymore. Like sometimes you don't even feel it, and so yeah, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, that's the update on my 2 kids.
Yeah, I have the same feeling about doing dishes.
Yes, what though.
Our kitchen attests to that right now.
The thing that holds me back, so I'm in charge of doing the dishes, and I'm also, part of what I do on a daily basis is write personal notes. And I can write the personal notes all day long. It's addressing the freaking envelopes. And then I don't mind doing the dishes, but it's putting the dishes away. Right. Yeah. Like and so it's like, it's Kristen, this is totally off topic, but still related to our audience will appreciate this. I mean, how often is a productivity hack just like getting rid of the one little hurdle that you have that's really not that big of a hurdle?
She's thinking about me as a hurdle, so she doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I understand that.
That's not a hurdle. That's Mount Everest. But that's a topic for another day. Now I started choking. So I got hung up on the word hack because I don't exactly
like the word hack.
Yeah, I don't like that word because it implies that there's some kind of a shortcut. And anytime we talk about shortcuts, I don't think it's, there's a phrase that the what I can't, the hurdle is the way through, or the shortcut is the way, or the long way. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm like brain dead.
Through, is that what you're thinking?
Yes. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the mindset that you're looking for a hack to get something done, it's going to be in polar opposition to the outcomes that you're actually going to get. So, back to your problem's not your problem, it's how you think about the problem. So
That's our show next week.
if you're thinking about finding a shortcut to something, you're going to find a shortcut. And how often do shortcuts actually help you? If you look at ways to optimize a situation through the lens of, I've never looked at it like that before, or I've never done it that way before. So putting the dishes away, I've always put the dishes away this way. Well, what if I, fill in the blank? I don't know how we optimize putting away the dishes. If you're in my house, though, it's probably having not Emily or Michael put the dishes away. It's having me put them away. And that's the optimization, because when they put stuff away, then it becomes a scavenger hunt for when you need something after it's back.
Or a massive game of Jenga or Tetris. Of
That could be that too. It could very well be that.
There's one thing out so the rest of them don't crumble.
Yeah. Well, so Mike, it's interesting. We should do a topic on how do you get control back once the podcast has gone off the rails. Like that's just it.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah,
sometimes that happens. Sometimes the best things are in those tangents that happen, right? So, all right, let's get on to our conversation for today, which is the early bird does not always get the worm. So let's first go with the phrase, the early bird gets the worm. It's older than you might think. It goes all the way back to 1636 when William Camden first recorded it as the early bird catcheth the worm in his writing about Britain. But the wisdom behind it is ancient. Across cultures, people recognize this truth. Germans said morning hour has gold in its mouth, while Renaissance scholars believed dawn was Renaissance scholars believed dawn was when the mind worked best. Even Benjamin Franklin echoed it when he said, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. By the 20th century, the proverb jumped from moral lesson to marketing slogan. That early bird special at your local diner first appeared in 1904 when an Oregon store advertised discounted men's underwear. There you go. The phrase became so embedded in our culture that modern science even confirmed it. Studies show self-described early birds report higher happiness levels. What fascinates me, though, is how adaptable this saying has been. Shakespeare referenced it. Aesop fables echoed it. And today, we've created counters like the second mouse gets the cheese, which I guess is kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about counters to that, right? So from agricultural wisdom to commercial catchphrase, this simple observation about birds and worms captures something timeless about human success. Opportunity favors those who show up first. Some truths, it seems, are as old as dawn itself. But here's what Camden and Franklin never considered. What if the worm isn't worth catching? In our 24/7 hustle culture, we've weaponized this ancient wisdom against ourselves. The night owl who codes breakthrough algorithms at midnight, the artist who finds inspiration at dusk, they remind us that productivity isn't measured by the clock, but by the quality of our output. Perhaps true wisdom lies not in rising with the sun, but in recognizing when your unique mind and body work best. After all, the early bird may get the worm, but the wise bird gets the right worm at the right time. So I'm curious, Michael, in the 12-week year, it challenges traditional timeframes by condensing annual planning into 12-week cycles. How does this approach address the tension between urgency and procrastination that we see in proverbs like the early bird gets the worm?
That's a really good question. And I think what I've learned in the years that we've been helping people is that there's not one way for people to accomplish their goals, and there's not one approach that gets goals to happen. And it's really finding that magic between who you are, what your biorhythms look like, and how you think and how you act, and what's most important to you, and the real world, right? Because there are certain things that we have to do to make things happen in our lives. And the ones that are most successful at doing those things obviously get the best results typically over time. And I think though that we always figure that the all the wisdom out there, we have to conform to it to make it fit, right? We have to fit to the ideas and to the systems, including the 12-week year. And I think, really figuring out who you are, how you work best, and then leveraging that is really important. That's why the 12-week year really isn't about much. It's just about, having goals and making sure you've got a sense of focus and urgency, because that's important. How you do that, though, is kind of up to you. We see a lot of variation in terms of how people do that.
Yeah, I think when I was putting that together, the part kind of that resonated with me was the fact that it's about the output, right? And so I think about the 12-week year. It's not when you do something, but it's actually what tactics are we focusing on, and what is the output that we're actually trying to generate. And Kristen, like, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs and people like the people kind of who are eating what they kill, like they all kind of just fall into the trap of, I've got to have this really productive morning routine. Like, I've got to get up at 5 a.m., got to do the whole Robin Sharma 5 a.m. club. And there's some people that probably just aren't wired to do that.
No, actually, Mike, there's studies that show if you're not aligning your chronotype with productivity, that if you're a night owl and you are getting up at the crack of dawn because that's the thing you're supposed to do, that's what all productive people do. The most successful people we know get up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 a.m., and that timeline just keeps moving. It actually creates reduced cognitive performance and higher stress levels. Oh, and then your sleep starts to really be impacted because of it. You're not aligning your chronotype with your natural or with the world around you and the way it works. So if you're a night owl, you're going to be a night owl. And if you're getting up at 5 a.m., that doesn't mean you're going to go to sleep at 8 or 8 p.m. It means you're going to still fall into that natural tendency of being a night owl. So then you're going to go from getting maybe 6 hours of sleep a night to 3 to 4 to who knows what. So there are a lot of studies around waking up early is not necessarily the thing unless it is your actual chronotype.
Which it's funny because I feel like I get stuck in both places. I know that when I've committed to a morning routine, it kind of like launches my day off the way that I need to, and I'm a better husband, I'm a better father. Lots of times I'm more productive, but there's been several times when I've been consistent with my morning routine, and I find that my creativity kind of comes out at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I get that creative bug and I want to chase it. Like Michael, I think you kind of get this as a writer. Sometimes you get going on an idea and it's like, especially as we get up there in age, it's like, if we don't capture that moment right there to kind of get this all on paper, it's way gone. Like I don't even remember any of it. So, how do you kind of balance that? Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I think
balances it with naps.
Well,
naps, okay.
Yeah, but naps are. You know what? Naps are. There's studies that show that people who have one of those societies where they have the siesta, where they take a nap in the middle of the day, and they work from the morning, they work in the evening, but they take that nap, that they have less heart disease, and that happened in Greece and in Spain, and now the Grecians. The Greeks, there we go. The Greeks are not doing that as much, and they're getting heart disease at a higher rate, and so the Spanish, and so that whole thing about naps is well underrated. I think it's a good idea. Anyway,
another reason why I should move to Italy.
Not to totally derail that, but as I was doing research around the scientific study around this, it actually aligned the 12-week year with tempering that and how the buffer blocks actually create that balance that you're talking about. And then the added benefit of that, and I don't know if you know this, Michael, you probably should, but according to research and all the thing out there, so a 2021 study in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that short-term goal cycles, i.e. the 12-week year, or is it EG, one of those, it actually increases motivation and task completion. And then that leads to more fulfilling and successful life.
Yeah, I believe that. I want to answer your question though, because you so rudely interrupted me, Kristen.
Yes, I did.
Really, really good question.
Put a quarter in the jar. We don't do that anymore, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. We should bring that back. Anyway, because I was the one putting all the quarters in. The thing about it is though, is that I thought that I was going to force my routine. And I started getting up at 4:00 in the morning, and I'd go on and I'd take a cold shower till about 4:30. And I tell you that waking up at
You
4
had this whole spreadsheet.
everything that happens after that is better, right? So you set up your day so that it's always going to get better. But I did that I'm still doing the cold shower stuff, but I did that 4:00 thing for about a year or more, and it didn't help.
Yeah, he did it for a while.
Yeah,
it didn't help.
Did not help. I mean, I felt good, like, hey man, look at me, I'm in charge of this, but it didn't necessarily make me more productive in the morning, because I'd be at my desk at 5, and wow, nobody's even going to be messing around with me for 3 hours. So what? I can do whatever I want. And so I would do things that were fun and interesting, but I wasn't doing the stuff I was trying to avoid. And so it didn't help me. It wasn't about the time I was up. It was the confrontation, the fact that I like to do some stuff and I don't like to do other stuff. The stuff I don't like to do, I'm not going to do it unless I absolutely have to, like a deadline's looming. So that didn't help me. It did not help me at all.
That's an interesting point. And I think he does go back to what we were talking about before on our tangent a little bit. So the stuff that you were avoiding, you had the excuse of, I'm being interrupted by people, whatever else. You can make an excuse, but at the end of the day, you were just avoiding doing it, and you're going to avoid doing it whether the distraction was there or not there.
Exactly. So now I'm tired and cold, and I'm avoiding it and doing it. Yeah.
So you got to confront that execution breakdown. So I want to focus on. So Kristen brought up buffer blocks. So I want to go back to that at some point and explain to the users what a buffer block, or the listeners, to what a buffer block is. And then I also want to talk about how you confront execution breakdowns, Michael, because I think that's really, really important in general for people. It's like the early bird doesn't necessarily get the worm. It's what's going to get your worm is if you're consistently executing and just going after those execution breakdowns. So we talk about, if you're not executing, the tendencies for people to go and attack their plan, but they really need to attack why are they not executing. So how does someone do that?
Well, are you asking me or Kristen?
I'm going to ask you first. Okay. Well, I'll start with you because you did write the book.
Yeah. So if
Kristen can tell me how it actually happens with her clients, you can give it to me in theory.
Yeah, she can actually tell what actually.
Right.
Then she'll correct it all for you.
Yeah.
We have that basic model, like to say all models are wrong, some are useful, of the way that we think causes the behavior the way we behave, which our behaviors create our results, right? So our thinking creates our results in life. So if I'm not getting the results that I want to get, and I'm not doing things I needed to get those results, I've got to confront the thought process that's underneath the waterline, because we're conscious of a very small percentage of our thinking at a given point in time. Most of our thinking is unconscious, and yet our life depends on that unconscious thinking to create its results, right? So that's where I go with people. So what's the thinking that gets in the way? And so things that are obvious, like I don't like to ask for referrals. If I got to get referrals to build my business, I don't like
putting away the dishes.
Yeah, I don't like putting away the dishes. Yeah, although there's a really good reason for that, but there isn't so much for not asking for referrals. Because the thing is that I'm not asking because I think it's going to create a bad problem, bad relationship, or whatever. They're gonna call out my fact I haven't done enough work, whatever. I mean, I've got all these negative thoughts. Those are just thoughts. Are they true, though, is the question. And I think where I would confront people is when they're not taking actions they want to take, is dig into the underlying thinking and examine those beliefs. Are they really true? Do people not like to be asked for referrals? Maybe they like to be asked for referrals. They like to help. They want to feel like they're part of your business, and they're an investor with you because they've invested a friend or a name, and it could change the relationship. Make it much stronger. So my point is, the way that we think drives our actions, and a lot of times what we believe isn't true. I like to ask this question: is the belief that your beliefs are true? And if you think about that for a moment, that some of them are, some of them aren't, but we act as if they all are. And that's where that dissonance shows up in our results. We don't get what we say we want because we're not confronting the thinking. So I would go right to the thinking on that.
So Chris, and I hear him talk about that, and I immediately think of Andy Andrews' book, Bottom of the Pool. And basically you keep on you're basically a toddler. Like you keep on asking yourself why until you almost get to the real reason why. Right. And this kind of goes into your idea that the problem's not the problem. It's how you look at the problem. When you get to execution. Go ahead and kind of, spill on that. And I have a little bit to add to this, but go ahead.
So a little bit of context for anybody who doesn't know, the bottom of the pool story. Kids playing in the pool all summer long, playing a game of dolphins. You just try to flap your hands and kick your feet to rise yourself out of the water. And whoever rose out of the highest was always the winner of the day, and it was usually the biggest kid because he was taller anyway, so by default he was already out of the water more than anybody else. And so one day, Andy decided he was going to do something else. Why do we do this and get the same results over and over and over again? And he asked the what if question, not how do I do something, but you have to ask what if first. What if I do this? What if I do that? Then we go to how and who. But he said, what if I approach jumping out of the water in a different way? So rather than trying to force his feet and his hands to give him enough inertia to come higher out of the water, he went down to the bottom of the pool, kicked himself off the bottom of the pool, and launched out of there like a dolphin. And to everyone's amazement, he won the day. But the kid who always won said, "That's not fair. You cheated." Well, no, I didn't cheat. Nobody told me those were the rules. We just, the outcome was supposed to be who could get out of the water the highest. And I just decided to do a different approach that might get me different results. So that's our day to day too. We do the same things over and over again, expecting to get different results. Or even it's maybe if I just work harder, if I work longer, if I just do more of these tactics, I might be able to get there. Referrals are a big source of many, many, many industries. Mike, you work in an industry where introductions are critical for you.
Yep.
And you have a huge referral network that you can tap into and look for those referral sources. And I have an agent who is not only leveraging that, but she's taking that same idea, those foundational pieces of it, and she's launching her own different type of an outsourcing referral network. Same principles, same foundations, but she just realized I can do this in an area that I've never done it before. And it's still in real estate, but it's not in her normal real estate circles.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it's challenging the way you think about different things and come up with different solutions. And when we're doing the exercise together, where we do the mind mapping, the brain dumping, we talk about all the different ways that you can achieve this goal. Like, we commonly challenge people to come up with the ridiculous things first, because I'm not, if your goal was, I want to generate 35 referrals in the next 12 weeks or whatever it might be, your brain's automatically going to go to the way that you've always done it, right? Well, this is how I generate a referral, blah, blah, blah. So like when we start thinking, okay, think about the ridiculous stuff first. So you kind of break those barriers and you open your brain up to maybe some more creative thinking.
And sometimes even when you do that, even when you think something's ridiculous and it will have absolute zero value, our audience has heard this story before.
The sandwich board.
We actually generate results from something every one of us would have said adamantly, do not do.
There it is. And then I was also thinking about, from challenging in the execution piece, like sometimes it's actually it's like, okay, do I have the skills? Do I have the knowledge? Do I have the training? Do I have the tools that I need to actually execute on this thing? Do I understand exactly what I'm trying to do? I think all those things are important too when you're looking at challenging the execution. Anything you want to add to that, Michael, after Kristen and I basically took what you said and made it better?
No, I think you guys covered it really well. I wouldn't add anything to it other than, you got to start from where you are. So don't beat yourself up in the process. It's just be curious about, what needs to change in your thinking and your behaviors, and then figure out how to make it happen. Don't, one of the downsides of wanting to feel more productive is you can start to, beat yourself up, and that's unproductive typically.
Well, and I love that word curious. Be curious about your own honesty about your capabilities. Mm-hmm. You mentioned, do I have the skill sets? Do I have the, most often we overestimate our ability and underestimate our ability to deliver on it. So be honest about your real skill set and what you have, or how long it's going to take you to develop the skills that you need.
Love it. All right, we're going to move on to the buffer block thing. So just in a second, Michael, I'll have you explain kind of what a buffer block is. I'll have Kristen talk about the way her clients use it, and then I'll talk about how I use it. But it's very applicable to this conversation because of this. And I'm going to use real estate as an example. And especially when in my thing, I said, hey, sometimes we're not catching the right worm. And in real estate, there's the people who are chasing leads. Their value is tied to their availability and how quick they can respond to a lead. They are what we like to say on demand, right? They're order takers, they're on demand, and they've got to jump as soon as someone's ready to do something. They have to act early, and they have to do that in that way. And then you can have a very successful business doing that. There's no question about it. Or you can make the decision that you're going to be in demand, that you have clients that are willing to leave you a message, wait for you because they know that you're the best, that your value is actually tied to something other than your availability. Your value's tied to, in my case, maybe some way that we've helped a client in the past, and people need to have someone helping them make a qualified decision, right? There's a little bit more. I mean, I think the way that I always put it is like on demand's going to McDonald's, in demand's going to the 5-star restaurant downtown that you might have to wait 2 or 3 months to get a reservation. You know, which one has more value? And the buffer blocks for me is a huge way that is, I think we counterculturally, you know, in real estate, you're either like, you always answer your phone, you got to be 24/7, which of course, I think if you're 24/7, you're never actually, operating at your peak. You're never operating at your best. And given the nature of what we're doing, helping people make these decisions, like we need to be operating at our best. And the buffer blocks to me help shield my time so I can be focused when I need to be focused, and then allows me to give the opportunity to reach out to people when I can give them my best and 100% my attention. So with that being said, Michael, talk a little bit about what a buffer block is.
Yeah. And I think the theory behind it is the whole time blocking system is that when you just are moving fast, switching from different things all the time, right? In different categories of things, and you end up, it creates a huge amount of fatigue. You're not very productive, and you get frustrated and stressed out. So what we wanted to try to do with our time blocking system is create something that was simple for people to use, but was effective at the same time. And so, I don't believe in micromanaging your day because it's impossible to do that. But I do believe in trying to create some steady blocks of time where you're doing certain types of things. And buffer blocks are part of that. And buffer blocks, for most people, are blocks of time where they're trying to take all of that administrivia, what I call administrivia, phone calls, emails, follow-ups, all that stuff, and put it into a box of time where you're going to be much more efficient at doing those things. And the reason that we do that is that you do get more efficient. You make more progress against those things, but you also keep those things from them interrupting you other times of the day because you're knocking them out in your buffer blocks. And so, we have people change their voicemails and say, I'm not at my desk right now. I typically return calls between noon and 1 and, or not noon and 1, but 1 and 2 and or whatever. And then you've got this kind of ability to call people and follow up and do your emails during those blocks of time. And it isolates the rest of your time, which is really the creative time, the productive time, the impactful time, from being interrupted. And I think when you talk about the whole concept of buffer blocks, you also have to think about the breakout block, which is a block of time where you've carved out for yourself to do what you want to do, right? And so it's a block of time where you're not gonna be doing work. You're gonna be doing something that recharges you, refreshes you. And if it's an app, Kristen, it's an app. It works. Those are the kinds of things that you want to do. So you don't want to just try to just have buffer blocks. You want to build in the breakout block, but also time where you're going to be working on your business, not in it. So it's a system, right? Buffer blocks are an important part of a larger system, I think.
How are people utilizing it, Kristen?
Well, I've named my breakout block. It's called Freedom Fridays now.
Nice.
And that's so I get to do what I want because I know it's a freedom from, and if I want to spend time working on it, I can, my business. And sometimes, necessity dictates that you have to do some things and pay a cost if you want some certain outcomes. So, but the mindset of I have choice to spend my time to work on the things I want, or I can spend that time doing other things in pursuit of happiness.
How do your clients utilize their buffer blocks? Okay, I know you just talked about breakout blocks. But how do they use the buffer blocks?
Yeah, so I've got a client in Hawaii who he's got this dialed in too. I mean, they're almost zero tolerance. It's so perfect. I know perfection's not a real thing, but he's about there. So anything and everything that he can keep the distractions at bay, he delegates. So it's almost like his buffer block, the administrivia things that we talk about doing in those buffer blocks, he's turned those into blue chip activities in his buffer blocks. And so, it's not the highest and best use of his time, but they are the highest things that he should be doing in that buffer block. It's not all the administrative stuff, but it's just the things that are administrative to him. And then he delegates everything else.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was wanting to kind of get at. I think from a practice with buffer blocks, number one, you should never start your day with a buffer block, because then you're going to start reacting to everyone else instead of starting your day proactive, right? So like, I'm not, at least in my case, I'm not a big believer in starting my day with a buffer block. I want to get a couple key things done first, before I start turning my day over to other people. And I think that's important for me to keep that in demand versus on demand mindset, is making sure that I'm not launching my day with a buffer block. So I'll work and do something, and maybe my first buffer block is around 11 a.m. And honestly, I'm at my best when I actually delete the email app off my phone, and all my notifications, including the little bubbles that say this is how many text messages you have, are completely turned off. And so I have to go intentionally check those things, right? So and I'm adding another layer. I've got fortunate enough to have a really good assistant. Her name's Maddie Spears. And we're working on that right now. Like, well, maybe she can be the one who is looking at my messages just to make sure that there's nothing that's super, super urgent that needs to have an attention, though, that is not keeping, that's, I can still stay focused where I need to stay focused. And if I need to she needs to get a hold of me, she can get a hold of me. But it's really hard to get me. Go ahead.
My client in Hawaii, he has an out of office on his email 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And it clearly defines in there, this is when he'll return your emails. If it is something that's urgent, and he doesn't use the word emergency because he believes that there's nothing that's an absolute emergency in his industry, that very moment that has to be, and that's another mindset shift, but that's another podcast. Then he's got a very specific set of instructions in there that says you can call my assistant at this number. They will take care of this. Right.
And I think that's the reality of it is, I want to take my buffer block, and I probably want to do it right after I'm doing a 5-minute social media block, and that's strictly where I go on and I look to interact with posts and maybe make a post. But I'll see if I have any social media, like the first messages I'm checking. Like, we have so many inboxes now, right? So we have to check our social media inboxes. We have to check our email. We have to check our text messages. We have to check our voicemails. And then I got to check all those things at one time, all those things inside a buffer block, and get them all condensed into one list. And then that's when you take, and you're either going to do it, delegate it, defer it, or delete it. And the more and more I can get Maddie to filter through that stuff, the better. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's the kind of stuff that we're working on. And then 2 or 3 times a day, I'll have a buffer block, and I'll make sure that the things that, and this is another thing that I think you all might find interesting. I'm actually taking the definition of tactics, and the tactics are the things that help me, the things that I've determined that are going to help me get to my goals. A task are those things that are associated with my job description that I need to be the one that does. And but those are things that I determine are part of my job description that I got to do. And the to-dos are the things that other people put on my plate. And so I'm starting to kind of really look at things in that light, so that I know that I got to go tactics, task, and then to-dos as far as like what the priority typically is going to be for me.
It's cool.
Do you like any of that, Kristen?
I do like that. I wrote it down.
Well,
she stole it.
I hope so.
Nope, I swiped it. It's stealing with integrity and professional enthusiasm.
I love it. If we can help make other people better, let's do it. So I think that's a good place to stop for today. We have one more show left, and we will be talking about Kristen's favorite topic. The problem's not the problem. It's how you look at the problem. And I think it's going to be very beneficial. So make sure you tune in, and we'll see you. We'll see you next week. Any parting words from anybody?
Just have a great weekend.
Well, I'll try. It's going to be an emotional weekend. I'm going to try not to cry. Let's just go with
it's
that.
Okay to cry. Tears are cathartic. There's actually properties in our tears that when we reabsorb them, it helps do a lot of emotional healing.
Chrissy's going to see Rocco walk down the graduation aisle, get his diploma, and then look at me. He's like, I'm stuck with the rest of this guy for the rest of my life. And she's going to just start crying. That's all it's going to be. So, all right, guys, have a good week.
All right.